on the rail, we have the junior and U17 women's field. They're getting ready for their scratch race. This is a 5-kilometer, 20-lap race. It's easy to follow. The way it works is the first person to cross the finish line at the end of the 20 laps wins. Just like the points race, this one will also start with a neutral lap. The start of the race will be signaled with the firing of the pistol. Most of these riders are coming from Ontario and Quebec, but we do have Arrond Atwell from Triple Shot Cycling Club out of Victoria. She's in the turquoise and Argyle skin suit. Naomi D'Souza is leading out this field at the moment. This is a combined category with U17 and juniors. Looks like the group is coming in together. And that signals the start of this 20-lap race. 5 kilometers. Nice relaxed start for this group. The Ontario riders in this category have been racing together since December. This is the 3rd meeting for them for an O-Cup race. So when riders are all together like that and up track, it usually means that the pace is on the slower side. They're all watching each other. Emma Lazenby is moving towards the front on the blue line. Still maintaining a comfortable pace. So when riders want to get away, they try and get an attack. It looks like Emma just snuck one in there. So Emma Lazenby has decided to be aggressive on this race with 17 laps to go. She's got a quarter lap almost lead on the rest of the group. The rest of the field is quite happy to let her go. Well, Emma is working hard to stay ahead of the peloton. They're staying high, not too concerned at the moment, as she gets almost half a lap. Half a lap lead. Arrond Atwell, who won the points race earlier, is on the front. She's just watching what's happening behind her. Some movement going on, people are changing positions. Still not interested in pursuing a chase. Emma still has just over a half a lap lead. There's Victoria Slater. She's accelerating off the front. Victoria Slater, she's one of the U17 riders. She's giving it a go. Looks like she took Kylie Stars with her. Victoria and Kylie race together all the time. They've managed to get a gap. In the meantime, Emma is still making her way towards the back of the main peloton. This is Zoe Wolfers with the pink handlebar tape, who's chasing down, and she's taking Catherine Bergeron with her. Catherine Bergeron from Team Equipe Quebec has gone over Zoe. This is Zoe's first year racing. She's learning a lot this year. Made the podium at the last Ontario Cup. And Victoria is getting passed by Catherine. But she's not giving up. She's still going strong. Emma is still half a lap behind or in front of the pack. Catherine Bergeron's putting in a great effort. She's got her sights set on Emma. And eventually the rest of the peloton. So Victoria, Kylie, and Zoe are now working together. They would be considered the second chase on the track, but coming up fast behind them is a group led by Cassandra Kyriakis. They've got those 3 riders. We'll see if they stick together, if they keep going. No, they've decided to keep going. So Cassandra Kyriakis and Ali are now chasing down Catherine and Emma. Emma's still holding half a lap on the rest of the field. Catherine's lost some steam. Not catching Emma as fast as she was before. But this group of 2, they're pulling in Catherine pretty quickly. Peloton's picked up the pace. Looks like they're being led by Hillary. Hillary's decided to pick up the pace in that group. Emma is still giving it everything she's got. Catherine seems to be the same distance behind as she gets passed by Ali and her chasing mate. But Catherine's now joined in. So there's that group of 3. They're past Emma. Emma's going to see if she can catch on to the group. So we have Cassandra, Ali, and Catherine, who are the 3 leaders on the track. Emma just behind them, but it looks like the peloton is going, and it looks like Naomi's attacked. Naomi's decided to have a go with 7 laps. 7 laps remaining in this race, and Naomi's got a massive gap in the first few pedal strokes. Looks like Naomi's got her sights set on Emma. First 3 are still working together. That's Cassandra on the front, crossing the finish line now. We have Cassandra, Ali, and Catherine. But chasing hard is Naomi. Looks like Naomi's having fun. She seems to relish in this discomfort, the discomfort of going all out. These 3 are the leaders. Naomi's doing everything she can to catch them. Emma's still near the front. And then we have Elizabeth Archbold and Laurie Gisam who are chasing. Elizabeth's had a really strong showing at the Oak Cups before. She's shown she's got a good little acceleration too. Naomi's gradually gaining ground, but Elizabeth and Laurie look to be catching Naomi. They've really picked up the pace with 3 laps to go. Elizabeth sitting on the team the Quebec Riders wheel, happy to get pulled along, and Naomi gets past and does everything she can to stay on Elizabeth's wheel. All right, so it looks like our chasing group of 3 are getting close to catching our leading group of 3. Our leading group of 3 have fallen away a little bit as the bell sounds. So far, it's Ali still has a gap. It looks like Catherine and Cassandra are going to get past. Quebec rider really giving it a go, but Naomi has a good sprint. She's been racing with men. Naomi's coming around as Elizabeth does everything she can, and looks like it's Ali, Laurie, and Naomi who will make up your top 3. Elizabeth just missing out on that, but gave it everything she got. All right, as we wait for the final standings on that, it looks like Ali was first, Naomi D'Souza second, Laurie Gisolman third, Elizabeth Archbold just missing out on the podium in fourth, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. Reminder to all athletes, you need to go through bike check every time before you head to the start line. The next race on track is the U17 men. All right, as the women come to a stop, we have the U17 men's scratch race. This is a 30-lap race, 7.5 kilometers. Riders in this category are Dawson McDonald, Justin Correa, Sydney Flagioli-Bray, Joël Domingue, Giuseppe Caron, Oliver Campbell, Antoine Dalterio, Ethan Sitlington, Kobe Liberty, Daniel Nordman da Silva, Ronan Johnson, Axel Froner, and Philippe Gelina. Just like the points race before this, the blue line is considered out of bounds. Riders are being warned and relegated for passing on the blue band. So a reminder to all athletes to stay on track. The neutral wrap has begun. Looks like everyone's happy to hang in. Just keeping the pace steady as the race has begun. There's an acceleration over the top, and that is Ethan Sitlington, who's decided to have a run. Daniel Norman da Silva is taking on his wheel, and Joël Domingue in the green is closing down that gap. Everyone else happy to just sit back and see what happens, see if these guys can get away. It's early in the race. And now it's Dawson McDonald. Sorry, Antoine Dalterio, who's decided to try and make it up, realizing these three riders together might be a dangerous combination. It's Justin Correa, who's got the orange shoes on. He's about to join the team, the Quebec rider. Looks like they're going to catch up to these first three riders. Again, it's Joël, Ethan, and Daniel, who've now been joined by Justin Correa. And Dawson McDonald just catching on to the tail end. It's about a two bike gap lead as everyone comes back together. And there's an acceleration by an NCCH rider. see if he does. He comes down to the black line. That's Giuseppe Caron as he accelerates off the front. His teammate is chasing him. That's rider 41, Ronan Johnson. Again, unlike road racing, there's no team tactics that take place in these races. It's every rider for himself. Joel's decided he wants to try and get to the lead. As Giuseppe pulls up, Joel decides to pull up as well. And the pace quiets down while everyone reflects on their decisions that were just made. Sizing each other up. Deciding again what their tactics are going to be to try and win this race. They have 22 laps to go. It's the first rider that crosses the finish line at the end of those 22 laps that wins. Dawson McDonald, who was very active in the last race. Oh, Sydney Flagioli-Bray, once again showing that he can accelerate strongly, goes to the front. In that group, we also have Axel, who's active in the last race. Oliver Campbell's in there. Those first 5 riders really tried to pull away, but the others behind them are doing a pretty good job of keeping them in check. They're working hard to all stay together. As riders pull up track and slow down, once again providing a bit of a breather. Rider number 54, just a reminder that you'll need to go through bike check. Giuseppe Caron again decides to have a go as he pulls around the top. Joel is forced to chase once more as the 2 riders, this is strong acceleration this time. Joel's pulling them back quite quickly. And that's Kobe Liberty, who's on with Giuseppe as Joel pulls up. We'll see if Justin nope, Justin decides, nope, I don't want to chase. Peloton again, the pace becomes relaxed. Joel's like, no, this is a strong attack. Sydney, he knows this is a strong attack as well. He wants to be a part of it. Warning to number 42, Axel Frohner, for riding on the blue band. Again, remember the blue band is considered out of bounds. Giuseppe is pulling away from his competitor, Kobe. Space now between Kobe and Giuseppe as the rest of the group is together. Dawson McDonald on the front of the chasing group. As a rider accelerates around the top and comes down the banking, we'll see. Sydney's on board. Nope, maybe he might let this one go. And that's Daniel Norman de Silva, who's decided to attack off the front. Yeah, Sydney decides that's my guy. I'm going to chase him down too. So we have Giuseppe and Kobe, who are now back together. They're looking to be joined by Daniel and then Sydney. It looks like we're going to have a strong group of 4, see if they can work together to keep the pace up. But Philippe Gelina is pulling the pack with, it looks like, a Forest City rider trying to gain some distance towards the front. And that is Axel Frohner, who's now made contact, and he's brought an NCCH rider with him. It's a fast pace, but it looks like everyone's back together. Rider number 33, Sydney Flagioli-Bray, you've received a warning for riding on the blue band. With 8 laps to go, this group is still together. There's a pickup in speed. That's Ronan Johnson, who's accelerated over. Joel has decided to follow him. We'll see. Oh, he's going to go right past him. No, maybe not. So Joel and Ronan are at the front. Doesn't look like they're going to have enough speed to stay ahead of the rest of the group. The group's being led by Dawson McDonald. Antoine Delterio is the Quebec rider that's also on the front. And picking up some speed in the green helmet. No, Antoine's going to close it. And with that move, it's brought everybody back together. Dawson McDonald's been at the front of most of the groups that he's been pulling around today. The benefit of being on the front is that you don't have any obstacles in front of you. The downside is that you have to work quite a bit harder. All these riders seem to be jockeying for position as they head into 4 laps to go. Antoine is staying nice and high. But from the bottom, there's an attack by Ethan Sitlington, I believe. Antoine's right on his wheel and decides to pull around. It looked like he was setting up for a sprint. This was his chance. Sydney is right there. So right now we have Ethan, Sydney, and Antoine, but Sydney's pulling a gap. Sydney's opened up a tiny gap on his teammate. That teammate is Ethan Sitlington. As Ethan pulls up, that leaves Antoine to chase down Sydney with 2 laps to go. We'll see if Sydney can maintain this pace and stay ahead for the rest of the race. As they get the bell lap, Sydney's got a good lead. But it looks like Dawson McDonald's going to chase him down, and he's taking Daniel with him. So right now we have Sydney, Dawson, first and second place, and it looks like Sydney's going to win that. Dawson comes in second, Justin Correa third, and just missing the podium, I believe that was Daniel Nordman da Silva. Cat 3 men are next on track. You should now have gone through bike check and be lined up at the back straight to get on track. Cat 3 men, you're up now. You can see on the back straight, there's some coaches coming down with spare wheels and equipment. On the back straight, there's what's called the wheel pit. So if there's any mechanical issue, so with the wheel pit, if there's a mechanical, riders are allowed 5 laps to get back into the race. They would make their way over to where that wheel pit is on the back straight. And the commissaire would then get them back into the race at the same position that they were in before the incident. Making their way onto the track is the Cat 3 men. Their race is 30 laps, 7.5 kilometers. Although this race seems simple, meaning the first person to cross the line after 30 laps wins, there are a lot of tactics that go into this event. If someone feels strong, they'll attack early and try and get away from the rest of the group. They may try and bring a few riders with them to help keep the speed up and stay ahead of the group. So the last time this group took to the railing was for the points race, and it was Hans Porten and Richard Westwood that led in that one. But again, this is a different race with different tactics. Richard's just making his way up to the rail now. So there's 9 racers in this category. They're just on their neutral lap. And the pistol signals the beginning, and Richard right away picks up the pace and gets ahead of his group. We'll see if anyone wants to chase him down or if they're going to try and leave him out there for 30 laps. Unlike the juniors, you'll see all kinds of different cadences or leg speeds during this event, everyone using a different gear. Juniors and U17 are restricted with their gearing. Adults are not. So Neil Armstrong is chasing down Richard Westwood. Don Smart is the rider in red and yellow. He's just moving up to the blue line. Richard's decided, nope, I don't want to try and go for a full 30 laps. I'm just going to warm up my legs. Riders will often go early just to see who chases them down, see who's also interested in winning this race, who wants to be aggressive. Joe Tran is the rider that's just hanging out at the front. As all these riders move around in positions. Hans and Joyce sitting out front, staying out of trouble. Also means he's putting in a bit more work. He's not getting a draft. So he's got a bit of a gap. So as he pulls up track, he's decided to rejoin the field. Christian Despatie is the rider that's now accelerated down the track. Hans is working to reel him in, but he's being patient about it as the rest of the group continues at the same pace. Hans pulls up, decides he doesn't want to chase Christian. Richard and Neil are at the front of the main group as Christian decides that he doesn't want to stay out there that long. Hans is egging him on with a nudge of the head, says, no, we got a good enough group. Let's see if we can make this a go. Working together with one other rider is almost always easier than going at it alone. So we'll see Hans and Christian if they're going to work together. In the meantime, behind them, it looks like Don Smart is trying to chase them down, and he's taking Joe Tran with him. This group splits apart. Riders all strung out along the home straight. So Hans and Christian are caught. So we got Christian, Hans, Don Smart, Joe Tran, Richard, Westwood, and Neil Armstrong. Just making contact at the back there is Randy Skidmore and Martin Glenhill. And all the riders are once again together. Hans staying high, staying at the front, giving it a bit of a go, just enough to make someone work for it to try and catch him, and that person was Neil Armstrong. When riders start to get gaps, they can either decide to turn on the heat and see if they can make it even bigger, or to stay within their limits and save a little bit for the finish. But right now we have Neil and Hans working together. We have Christian coming over the front of the peloton. In the points race, Christian kind of sat between groups on his own as well. It looks like he's doing the same thing a little bit again here. Not scared of work, but lacking a little bit of speed to close down gaps. And he's decided to pull up and hang out with the group, make it a little bit easier on himself. Neil and Hans still working together. Don Smart is leading the charge in the main group. On his wheel is Randy Skidmore, but Don Smart is really, he's got the 2 leaders in his sights. He's taken it upon himself to chase that down and try and close it. And as we head past the halfway mark, we have Neil and Hans who are leading it out. Richard's moving up and over. Christian's right on Richard's wheel. And Richard decides to close the gap by himself as he picks up the pace. Christian's going to hang on to that wheel. Use Richard to pull him in to the first 2 riders who've fallen apart a bit as Neil pulls up. See if he pulls back down into these 2 riders, and he misses the wheel a little bit, which means that he didn't come down quick enough to get right into the draft. So Neil now has to try and sprint to catch back on to these 3 leading riders. Joe Tran has also left the group, trying to chase things down. So our main group of 3, we have Hans, Richard, and Christian, who are working together. Chasing them is Neil, who got dropped from the lead. And coming up into Neil's draft, or trying to, is Joe Tran. Neil pulls up, he sees that Joe's there. We'll see if Neil tries to get on Joe's wheel. Oh, looks like his gas tank is running on empty. But Joe's still digging into his bank, seeing what he can pull out in these last 11 laps to see if he can catch the first 3 riders. Lead group has more than half a lap on the bigger chasing group. Neil's pulling up track. He's going to wait for these last 4 riders, see if he can get in with them. Nope. Got a little bit of a second wind. You can see that he might be able to catch Joe. And Hans is pulled away from his 2 compatriots as Christian tries to get around Richard. So Richard eased up a little bit to let Christian do the chasing. Richard decided he didn't want to chase down Hans. So currently it's Hans who's the front of the race, who just crossed the finish line, followed by Christian, then Richard. Neil and Joe are now working together to stay ahead of the last 4 riders, but Hans is looking to try and lap the field. Richard's not willing to work with Christian at all. as they pull up track, losing speed, which allows Hans to pull away even more. So as Hans is coming up to the tail end of what remains of the pack, there's been an acceleration by Martin Gledhill, who's got Joe and Neil. He had them in his sights and said, yeah, I want to stay ahead of you guys, so he went for it. Hans is approaching the last 3 riders. So Hans has now passed these 3 riders. That means he's a lap up. So he's now a lap up on those 5 riders that he's currently passing. He's next person he's the leader. He's the next person that he's chasing down is Martin. Martin, in the meantime, is chasing down Richard and Christian, who look to be riding as in cooperation again. So with 4 laps to go, Hans is catching on Martin Gledhill. Neil, who started out strong, is going to try and hold on to these 4 riders at the back. Richard and Christian, who just crossed the start-finish line, are currently in 2nd and 3rd place. This is our leader, Hans. Behind him is what would be 4th place in the race, and that's Martin Gledhill. So the next 2 riders to pass the finish line are in 2nd and 3rd place at the moment. And the leader of the race, Hans. So even though these 2 riders are getting the bell lap, they will be racing for 2nd and 3rd. Hans, who's about to cross the finish line right now, is our leader of the race. Behind him is currently 4th place in the race. The rest of the group is chasing for 5th place. And it looks like Richard will take 2nd place. Christian, who gave it everything he got, comes in 3rd, so he does step up onto the podium for that effort. And it looks like Martin will come into 4th place. So because Hans had caught the group, it meant that he had to do another lap. But he had a great effort and showed that he was definitely the strongest in this field today. Currently on the rail, we have our open women who are ready to do their scratch race. This will be 20 laps, 5 kilometers. There's a mix of elite, masters. I believe some racers in here, it's their first year racing. It's a great experience for them to get an opportunity to race with more experienced riders. In the points race, it was Ariane Bonhomme from Gatineau, Quebec, who lapped the field. She's in the purple and pink skin suit, long sleeve skin suit. Aubrey De Silva with the fluorescent yellow socks. Relatively new to cycling. Her mom's in the stands cheering her on. Her mom's a really strong cyclist. Race has begun. Currently at the front, we have Vlada and Arrond setting the tempo. Everyone appears to be quite happy to hang out behind them for the moment, as they stay high up on the track. Arrond appears to be a marked woman in this race after her showing in the last one. Hanging close to her is Danielle Mullins. She's from Rochester Hills, Michigan. There's a few Americans in this race who've traveled up. Aga decides to have a go as she comes down to the bottom, accelerating through to the front, but it looks like Arrond will get right on her wheel, letting Aga just hang out a little bit. Arrond decides to pull up and let Danielle finish closing the gap. Aga, realizing that she's not going to get ahead, pulls up, as does everybody else, slowing down the pace. Oh, and then there's an acceleration. That's Velina Sintel from Toronto. She enjoyed that black line in the points race. She's got a bit of a gap. 4 riders are closing her in. Rosa is on the next group, who's now being passed by Aubrey. Vlada is right on Aubrey's wheel. Vlada and Aubrey both have really strong sprints. As Velina pulls up, the pace slows down, allowing everybody to get together again. Alice and Danielle decides to come forward. Rosa's on her wheel. Rosa, a former soccer player, a really strong cyclist. She too has a good sprint. It's her first year racing. And Arrond decides to go, but Candace is right on her wheel. Looked like Danielle was ready for that as well, and Aubrey just getting the tail end of it. Vlada's coming over the top. Looks like Vlada's a little bit quicker than everyone else behind her, and as the first 4 pull up, Arrond keeps the pace a little bit higher. Just making contact is Sarah Giovanetti, then Velina. Arrond picks up the pace again. Candace is right on her. Aubrey's looking to close the gap. So Candace and Arrond have a little bit of a gap over Aubrey, but as they make that exchange and lose a bike link, they'll bring everyone back together. So 7 riders at front. Chelsea Knapp is the one with the fluorescent yellow socks trying to bridge, and Lisa Ulrich pulls forward as she tries to get contact again. It's a good mix of master and elite in this group. Lisa's made contact. She's got Vlada right on her wheel. At the front we have Danielle, who just pulled up, allowing Aubrey to take a pull. Aga looks to be making contact with the group again. Pace is slowed again, allowing everyone to get back together. Seven laps to go for this group, and Sarah's on the front. Sarah moves up, Vlada moves up, Valina moves up. People are starting to think about the finish. If you go too early, you might lose steam. If you don't go early enough, you're racing with many more people.
I keep on hearing that.
Ariane and Danielle at the front, setting the pace. This is anybody's race. Again, it's the first person to cross the finish line after the bell that wins. There's a few good sprinters in this group. So sprinters, it's in their best interest to keep the pace a little bit slower and to sprint at the end. For those that have stronger endurance, they want to go early, see if they can drop the sprinters and tire them out. Vlada is currently at the front, very aware of what's going on behind her. She's a very experienced rider, current Master Pan American champion in every event that she raced in the fall. Four laps to go. That's 1 kilometer remaining in this race. It's a comfortable pace. So Ariane, Aubrey, and Vlada, riders at the front. With 3 laps to go, everyone's shoulder checking a lot. Trying to anticipate attacks as Aga decides to have another go with 3 laps to go. Right on her wheel is Valina, but Ariane says, yeah, I'm gonna stay up here too. Candace, who's been marking Ariane the whole race. And then Danielle, those 3 look to now overtake Valina. And they're looking to overtake Aga as they hear the bell. Bell lap to go. And it looks like Ariane, Candace, Danielle, Vlada's in there, Sarah's in there. Those 5 riders are looking for the win. As Vlada moves up a little bit, Sarah has to come around her, and Ariane looks to take the win over Candace and Danielle. With Aga might have gotten her nose in there for a 4th. Strong finish by all those women. Two men are making their way up to the rail. Their race will be 30 laps, 7.5 kilometers long. This is the Cat 2 men's scratch race. Riders include Dan Barnduca, David Valenki, Mark Buckaway, Han Yan Chu, Charles Cormier, Killian Cummings, Eric Curtis, Chris Dunbar, Jim Edmondson, Marshall Edinger, Jamie Fitzgerald, Matthew Ford, Jim Gantley, who finished on the podium in the points race, Darren Hobson, Derek Coops, Alexander Mulholland, and Andrew Olive, Dan Thompson, Enoch C., and Richard Ugaldi. This race got off to a fast start with Mark Buckway starting aggressively. Sitting on his wheel, we have Killian Cummings. Looks like they've regrouped a little bit as Mark pulls up. There's just a tiny little bit of space as the rest of the group picks up. There's communication between these riders. So Killian Cummings, and then we have Matthew Ford, who is also very aggressive in the points race. Mark Buckaway is back to chasing those two down. The riders pull up, allowing these two to gain more of a gap. So again, that's Killian Cummings and Matthew Ford. The pack sits up. All right, having to go off the front is Charles Cormier. Jim Edmondson is following suit. So is Chris Dunbar. You'll see all kinds of different leg speeds in this race. People will put on, if it's too easy a gear, you lose speed, but you can accelerate well. If it's too hard of a gear, it's too hard to accelerate, but once you're up speed, you can hold it. So choosing the correct gear, because all these bikes only have one gear, is a really important decision when racing. Riders will change the chainring and the cogs to give them different gearing, making it harder or easier. So it looks like we have a lead group of 6, but trying to bring the peloton up to them are 2 riders. Chris Dunbar is just making his way to the back of the lead group. So Matthew Ford is leading them around. Matthew Ford is one of the instigators of this attack. Looks like there's riders here and there that are gaining contact again with the lead. Eric Curtis in the red and black, he had a good go for his pull, trying to keep the pace high to keep this group on the smaller side. Killian Cummings, he's keeping the pace high as well. You can see with the gaps forming that it's a struggle for some of them. It's really important for riders to be attentive of what's going on in front of them. So if one rider can't maintain the speed, want to come over and close the gap, but it looks like they've eased off a little bit on the speed, allowing everyone to reconnect. So currently Jim Edmondson is leading. Trying to catch him is Killian Cummings. Trying to catch them is Eric Curtis. All the riders behind those 3 have set up as someone comes up and over the top. Cummings again being aggressive. The rider on his wheel. So at the moment, these three are the lead of the race. These two are chasing to try and catch those three. This would be considered the pack or the peloton. Looks like the peloton is working together. We'll see if they can bring the pace up and get everyone back together. Killian Cummings is just closing that final gap in the lead group. The peloton is gaining ground on the lead 5 riders. So at the halfway point, we have 5 riders ahead. A strong peloton that's chasing as Enoch takes to the front. He's decided his pull's not strong enough to wheel them in. He needs some bigger legs up there. And those bigger legs came from Darren Hobson. Darren Hobson and Jim Gantley. And there's 7, a slight gap, and then the rest of the group. Chris Dunbar is working hard to try and close down that final gap. All right, still a little bit of a gap, but Eric Curtis has closed it. So our lead is now together, all strung out. As people move up, we'll see if the pace changes. And they're heading in, 11 laps to go. They're taking a bit of a rest. The last 10 laps, last 11 laps of this race. So we have a main peloton. Behind them are 4 riders who are working well together to try and gain contact again with the lead. 10 laps to go, anything can happen. Lead riders, although strung out, are at a comfortable pace. No one's working too hard. They've settled in. It's these moments where they try and bring their heart rates down and get their legs to recover a little bit. Get themselves ready for the final sprint. And just riding off the front is Jim Edmondson. He's got about 5 bike lengths. We'll see if he accelerates a bit to stay ahead or waits for the peloton. Looks like he's going to try and stay ahead a little bit. Now being chased down by Enoch and Derek Coops, closing the gap. Though there's some few little gaps forming at the main bunch, they're basically together. Good chance this will come down to a good group sprint. Or not. We'll see what they have planned. Mark Buckaway is leading the chase. Those 4 riders are still trying to gain contact with the main peloton. They just might do it. The main group has slowed down enough, and those 4 riders have been working well together. And Dan Thompson does the final little push to get those 4 riders into contact. In the meantime, there's 2 that have broken off, a little bit of a gap. Once again, that's Jim Edmondson. 1 kilometer to go, 4 laps remaining in this category. Pace has picked up. Jim Edmondson has been on the front for a lot of this. His shoulder checking, starting to, with 3 laps to go, he's starting to put together strategy. As a few riders come to the front, everyone bunches up, everyone's fighting for a position that they can sprint from as we head into the finish. 2 laps to go, and Charles Cormier has accelerated, but ready for him was Andrew Olive. Those 2 riders have quite a bit of speed, but it looks like Matthew Ford put a strong showing the points race. He's in a good position as well. Bell lap. Darren Hobson has a chance. Looks like just running out of speed is Killian. And as they come out of the final turn, it's going to be a tight race for the finish, and ooh. Rider 95, Charles Cormier, who started that sprint, came out of the sprinters line and has been relegated. We're waiting for the other results to become official. As we're waiting for the official results of that final race. The junior men are now making their way onto the track. The junior men have been very animated. Should be another exciting race from them. Pulling up to the railing there, number 2. That's Jordan Jones. He had a very aggressive points race. All the riders are fighting for position at the front of the rail. I think we're going to see a very exciting race from these guys. There's lots of riders who are aggressive. It's anyone's race. The junior men will be doing 40 laps, 10 kilometers long.
Milton goes for sure. Gordon knows exactly where he's at that.
So in the last race, it looks like Darren Hobson pulled out the win. Matthew Ford in second and Killian Cummings in third. This will be a neutral lap as they come around 1 lap. race has begun. It looks like Sydney's off the front right away. No, it's Eric Bartolomeo, sorry. Eric is off the front right away. Orange helmet, similar color to Sydney's. And he's got Ian Curry on his wheel, helping him out. Jordan's holding a comfortable pace at the front of the rest of the pack. Adam Lefebvre has had a strong race so far. Adam, new to racing. His hockey background proves to be beneficial onto the track. And these first two riders already have half a lap on the rest of the peloton. Only 2 laps into the race, they've already gained half a lap. So again on the front, just taking the lead is Ian Curry and Eric Bartolomeo, while the rest of the peloton is strung out.
OCA website. This is being recorded.
Gabriel Drapogorski, Team Equipe de Quebec. He's doing his best to reel in the 2 leaders. As 2 riders pull up at the front, it'll slow the pace down a little bit, but Jordan did so much work in the last points race. He's still got energy in those legs on this one.
Just look up Arrond in YouTube. The screen, I think it's working now, but I'm not too sure if it's like 100%. But that would be live. So like what you're seeing here now would be live. Okay. Thank you. You too. Thank you. Oh, we can see that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, as long as you put the radio over there by master control type thing. And your radios are better than our people radios. So, if you have extras, we would be... Oh! Yes. That's what this is all leading up to. We want
These are our 2 leaders who are coming across right now.
Oh, good.
They appear to have gained some distance on the peloton last few laps. It's holding steady at half a lap lead.
That area.
Quebec riders have been pretty active in this race as well. This is Gabriel, who's every time he gets to the front, picks up the pace and tries to reel in the first 2 riders. In the meantime, Lucas Taylor has no interest in helping, making Jordan once again get to the front. He's also motivated to keep the pace a little bit higher. Rider behind him, not so much, leaving another Quebec rider to do the pulling. And that's Tristan Guillemette and Chris Ernst. And then we have Lucas Taylor, that group of 3, but the gap is closing. And through their efforts, they've gained some ground on the 2 lead riders. If this main peloton can work together, or get a small group that'll work together as well, they'll have a better chance of chasing down the first 2 riders. But so far, it's been a good showing. So Ian and Eric are still hovering around that half a lap lead. Some laps it goes up, some laps it goes down. In the meantime, it's Gabriel once again at the front. Every time Gabriel gets to the front, they make ground on the peloton. Now his teammate, That's Felix who's picked up pace. Some gaps forming at the back. Lucas is accelerating up and over a little bit. Just regaining, closing some gaps, regaining contact. And the peloton, as the riders, first three riders pull up, again lose just a little bit of ground that they'd made up on the two lead riders. Now the group is bunching up. They're all watching each other. It's almost like they've forgotten that two riders are ahead of them. No, not for Gabrielle. Gabrielle once again says, come on guys, we can catch them. Just under half a lap lead. Strong acceleration this time by a Quebec rider. Jordan's trying to get onto his wheel, and that is Tristan Guillemette, Jordan Jones, Chris Ernst. Chris is now trying to gain contact with Tristan. Those three riders are now together. They're going to root together. Yeah, it looks like they're going to catch. Ian is sitting up. He's waiting for the, well, what is now the peloton, everyone to come together. It's a good acceleration that brought everyone together. First two riders deciding, oh, and just as they were caught, there it goes. Felix Pelletier. With him is Lucas Taylor. They have about a 5 bike length lead as it gets slowly closed down by Josh Schenker. All right, so it looks like the lead is now 8 riders. 8 riders to form the head of the group. They've pulled up, slowed down speed. That'll allow the 9th rider to pull in. And that rider was John Stewart. Behind them, trying to catch on, is Ian Curry, who was our leader at the beginning, and Eric Renke. Nope, sorry, Guillaume Davidson. And our orange helmet leader from the beginning is now just trying to catch back onto the main group as Chris picks up the pace slightly. Eric's digging deep. He knows that if he can gain contact with the group, it'll be much easier. And as the group comes together, there's a Quebec rider, and that's Gabrielle, who accelerates, but it looks like Adam Lefebvre was ready for it. Felix is coming in. So right now we have Adam and Gabrielle working together at the front. Chasing is Felix. Jordan is leading the pack, as is Chris. Looks like they're content just to let those two riders continue to accelerate away from them. Rider number 3 caught in the middle. Felix, he has to decide if he's still gaining ground on the first 2 riders or if he's going to wait for the peloton to catch him. And as he's making that decision, looks like Lucas Taylor is going to catch up and go around him. So we have Lucas Taylor and Jordan Jones. Jordan Jones accelerating through. Lucas is going to catch right on with him. And the lead 2 riders have pulled up. They're going to wait for the rest of the peloton. Ten laps to go. This is 9 laps to go for the riders. 9 laps to go. Eric Bartolomeo, who had a really strong beginning, still just hanging on. He's had a few bike lengths to make up every few laps. It's a lot of work to do it that way. Eight laps to go for these riders. They've slowed down, they're starting to rethink. This is where they need to plan their position, decide what they want to do for the finish. Seven laps to go. And look at that, the rider that kept trying to make contact with the end has decided to come through to the beginning. And that's Eric Bartolomeo. He is pulling around with him. Ian Curry, those two who spent so much time together earlier. Looks like Eric's decided that's not the move that's going to stick. The group is together again. They're heading into 5 laps to go. 5 laps to go. Eric, with a valiant effort, is once again trying to make contact with the end of the group as everyone's strung out. 4 laps to go. This is 4 laps to go. And Ian's decided 4 laps, he can try and make it go and stay ahead for those last 4 laps. The group is quite content to let him go. Remember, whoever crosses the finish line is the winner with 3 laps to go. With 3 laps to go, that's Ian making a run for it. Jordan is thinking about accelerating, picking up the pace in the main group, but pulling everyone along with him. Ian, with 2 laps to go, is still ahead of the rest of the group. Jordan's chasing him down. Chris is the rider on the red line that's now pulling around. We've got Chris moving around. Adam Lefebvre is on his wheel. In the meantime, Ian gets the bell. 1 lap to go. 1 lap to go. It's Ian in the lead. Chris is chasing. Adam Lefebvre is pulling around. He's pulling out that sprint. Jordan, though, Jordan is right on his wheel and heading into the last quarter. We have Ian. Whoa, tight one there between Adam and Jordan. Wait to see what the decision is on 2nd and 3rd place in that race. Very exciting sprint into the end. Reminder to all riders, hands need to be on the handlebars when on track. Hands need to be on the handlebars when on track. Our final scratch race is the Cat 1 men. After the Cat 1 men, there will be a break before we head into the elimination races. The elimination races are the last races on the schedule.
Why is this here?
Enrico the Keener is already up at the railing. Already there's some rivalries and tactics that are happening up at the railing. Looks like Matt and Enrico are becoming friendly. So this race is 60 laps long, 15 kilometers. It's a mix of elite and master men in this category. Steve Bauer is now making his way up onto the railing. Steve Bauer had an illustrious career. Can't go to Europe without being recognized. He was such a strong player in the professional road racing scene. There are 23 riders in this race. There are 23 riders in this race. The maximum allowed in a race is 24, so they're almost at capacity. This is the start of the neutral lap. Again, this race is 60 laps long, 15 kilometers. They'll need to form a nice tight pack as they come around to the home straight. And the race has begun. And already accelerating through the bottom is Timothy Burton. Decided to have a go. We'll see if anyone tries to chase him down. And I believe that's Robert Hargrave, who's picked up the pace a little bit. Yep, Robert Hargrave has picked up the pace on his wheel. It looks like Andy D'Angelo. Timothy Burton has a good gap. It is a long race though. So almost half a lap lead. The main group don't seem too concerned. Matt DeLuco sitting on the front. He's working to close that gap a little bit, but still keeping energy within the tank. He's not working too hard. Gap is just under half a lap. Lots of racing experience in this peloton. And Timothy Burton, our current leader on the track, seems to be losing some of that advantage. Slowing down just a little bit, allowing the peloton to catch him. Steve McKee now on the front, just pulling up and allowing William Nightingale to take a pole. Behind him is Darrell Pop, who spent a lot of the points race on his own. Darrell Pop has shown that he's a strong racer in this group today. Same with Chris Viereck. He was very active in the points race, which happened previously. And the lead is less than a quarter of a lap at this moment. And Timothy has decided he's had enough. He pulls up. He'll make his way back into the group, take a breather, rest his legs, bring his heart rate down a little bit. This category seems to be holding a steady pace. Riders will pull up track to let others come to the front. It's much easier to sit on a wheel and to get a draft. You are working harder when you're at the front. There's a whole bunch of unwritten rules and gentleman rules that come into play. It's expected that you do some work at some point if you want to try and go for the win. But there's no rules that say you have to pull up at any one time. Enrico is now pulling to the front. Another rider with a lot of experience. He represented Canada at the Master Pan Am Championships. Being aware of what's happening in front of you as well as what's happening beside you and behind you are very important in this race. You want to be aware of what's happening in front of you, so when the pace picks up like it does now, that you're ready for it, you can stay on a wheel. But you also want to be aware of what's happening beside you to see if anyone's up track, thinking about having to go, thinking about attacking, as well as keeping your ears open to hear what's happening behind you. Again, to anticipate if anyone's going to accelerate. All senses are in use for this race almost. And the pace picked up for a bit and is now eased off. Steve McKee pulls up, allowing Chris to pull up. Enrico again making his way to the front. Enrico is very active in the cycling community, a strong supporter of junior racing and development racing. They're going to let him hang out there for a little bit as Darrell moves up track. Nobody's panicking at this point in the race. There's still 43 laps to go. Riders are starting to move around in the main pack, looking for positions. They're spread out from top to bottom. Darrell is very aware that Stephen Keeping is up track. Stephen Keeping with the bright yellow gloves. Enrico's decided, nah, this race is too long. I'm going to pull up and make my way back into the main group. And it looks like Simon Fothergill's going to have a go, but Steve McKee was ready for that. He's right on his wheel. Brent Atkins is right behind him. That's a strong acceleration by those three riders. We have a Quebec rider who's going to gain contact. That's Pierre-Andre Cote. Darrell was chasing, but decided to pull up. That leaves Matt. Matt's now forced to chase the gap. He knows that this is an important group. Many of these riders race together all the time. They know which are the strongest riders in this peloton. Following this race, there will be a break, a brief intermission before racing resumes with the elimination races. Currently happening in this race, there's someone else who tried to attack off the front. They're talking together to see if they work together. And that is Robert Hargrave, Brian Kelly, Robert Hargrave. First two riders, they're pulling along another rider. Some are trying to make grounds. Matt is just pulling up from chasing. So our lead is now 5 riders. We have Stephen Keeping in that group. Looks like Simon Fothergill is going to reel them back in. As he pulls up, he's going to let our original attacker, Timothy Burton, finish the job. Steve McKee is patiently hanging out on that wheel. And everyone's back together, although strung out. And the pace slows down a little bit as everyone realizes that it's Grupo Compacto. When the pace slows down, it provides opportunity for people to change their position, move from back to front, or get into the middle. And Steve McKee is now accelerating. He's taking, I believe, this Andy D'Angelo with him. These two accelerated with a lot of momentum and speed. So Andy and Steve are off the front. William Niedinger is trying to reel them in. Keeps looking behind him to see if he's going to get some help. Pierre-Andre is coming to help, but Pierre-Andre is just going to blow right by him. No, pull up. And that's giving all of the pressure to chase them down to Michael Dega. Michael Dega is also shoulder checking. He doesn't want to do too much pulling. Pierre-Andre. Chris Fierick is now forced to chase. Nope, he's easing it up a little bit. Durrell's easing it up. Keeping says, no, come on guys, let's try and catch him. Stephen Keeping picks up the pace. Just over a quarter of a lap lead. So Andy and Steve, 29 laps to go, are ahead. Robert Hargrove, who's done a lot of chasing in these races, does his pull. Once again, the group is all strung out. These are moments where riders need to pay attention to what's happening in front of them. The gap opens up. It can be difficult to close it. Peloton has gained just a little bit on the lead 2 riders, but it's still hovering around that quarter lap mark. Steve and Andy, they race together quite a bit. Brad Bradford has moved up to the front. Durrell once again pulling up without pulling. And our 2 riders have said, yeah, it's too close. Let's move up. We're going to move back in, give ourselves a break, 26 laps to go. And as they do that, it's the perfect time for attack, and that's what Jason Valenti did. Taking Pierre-Andre with him, Steve McKee says, yeah, I'm ready for that one. He's got his eye on the prize. He's motivated to win. Simon Fothergill is currently just pulling up. Steve McKee, Pierre-Andre Coe, Robert Hargrave. Those are just some of the riders in that 7-person lead. Behind them, there's 5 riders that are chasing, led by Durrell Pop. Matt DeLuca is in that chase. Lead group have pulled up. Alexa, no, Robert's also agreeing to pull up from the lead group. And as the pace slows down, that's going to allow riders to connect with everybody again. Andy went from the front at one point to the back. He's trying to get some help from the rider behind him, but the rider behind him not willing to help. forcing Andy to do the chasing back on to the tail end. Meanwhile, at the front, we have Pierre-Andre, Steve McKee, and Simon Fothergill, all familiar names when it comes to being aggressive in these races. Those are the lead three.
Right there, Brad.
Now joining them is Doral Pop and Brad Bradford. So our lead is made up of these 5 riders that are currently crossing the finish line. But chasing pretty quickly is a strong group behind them. That was Chris Ferrick, who did his pole. Richard Froner got to the front and put on the jets and accelerated quite a bit. We'll see if Stephen Keeping can keep that speed up. They have the lead riders in sight. Stephen pulls up, Steve Bauer takes to the front. He really picks up the pace, dropping Matt in the process as Steve looks to gain contact with the main group. Matt says, I just don't have enough. Stephen's like, all right, I'm going. Matt's doing everything he can to try and gain contact with this lead, just as Stephen pulls into the tail end of the lead 6 riders. So there's now 7 riders that make up the lead. Justin Rogers is currently trying to get onto the front end, as all the riders behind have split up into a whole bunch of different groups. Andy D'Angelo is going to try and connect back on with these. So Steve McKee is leading out the charge, then Stephen Keeping, Pierre-Andre Cote. Steve Bauer's in that group, Robert Hargreaves in that group. NCCH rider just pulled up, doesn't want to get too close to the front. That Simon Fothergill needs a bit more of a rest. All right, with 14 laps to go, it looks like our main group currently being led by Doral Pop, all in black. The winner looks to come out of this group. They're half a lap up on the rest of the group, but working really well together, keeping the speed high. Simon Fothergill got his steam back and took his pole. Stephen Keeping's now on the front. There's a half a lap between the front end and the back end of this race. And it's 12 laps to go for our leading group. So our leading group of 8 overtakes Richard Froner. And our leading group keeps gaining on what is considered the chase group that just crossed the finish line. Steve Bauer pulls high, Simon pulls high, Robert Hargrave is on the front. Yep, still working together. All right, it's about a quarter of a lap that this main group has to make up in order to lap the field.
Right there, Brad.
With 8 laps to go. With 8 laps to go, there's 8 riders that will have a chance to win this race. So the main group has picked up some riders that have Steve Bauer is leading the charge, as it looks like Justin Rogers is pulled up, leaving Stephen Keeping to try and close the gap that was formed. It's a lot of effort that's expected of them.
Push it, Brad!
5 laps to go, and this is where these races get confusing. We have 8 riders that are in the lead. Those 8 riders have now caught the rest of the riders. So although everyone's together, there's 8 riders in that group that are a lap ahead of everybody else. Chris Fierick, rider 72, please remove yourself from the track. Andy D'Angelo, rider 69, please pull yourself from the track. So riders that have been lapped twice are being pulled from the race. It's also a reminder that if you've been a lapped rider, you're not allowed to do any of the work. So Chris Fierick, please remove yourself from the race. 1 lap to go. All right, so this is coming down. Steve McKee's accelerating around Andre Cote. NCCH rider that's in there is Simon, and it looks, whoa, that was another close one between Pierre-Andre and Steve. 3rd place, looks like it'll go to So it looks like Simon Fothergill pulled out a 3rd place finish for that. We'll see what the official calling is on Steve McKee and Pierre-Andre Cote.
Nice work, Brad. Nice try.
So there's now a brief break. Racing will resume at 6:05 with the elimination races. 10-minute break. And it looks like the results for the Cat 1 men's scratch race. Pierre-Andre Cote from Équipe de Québec took that over Steve McKee from La Bicicleta, with Simon Fothergill from NCCH powered by Deck Express taking 3rd. We'll see what happens in the elimination race for those guys. So racing will resume at 6:05.